when you found out you were going to be made redundant, how did that make you feel?
I was the only one that walked out of that office with a big cheesy grin on his face. um, it was touch and go. I wasn't sure I was going to be one of the selected, if you like.
This is
So I
Adrian
wasn't
Muxlow,
sure.
and
I
if you
wanted
think
it
that
at
56
that
is
point.
too
I'd
old
made
for a
the
complete
decision.
change of career and to start your own business, then you need to listen to what Adrian has to say. I'm Jeremy Klein, and this is Change Work Life. Hello and welcome to Change Work Life, the show that's all about beating those Sunday evening blues. My guest this week is Adrian Muxlow. Adrian spent 20 years in IT working for a big bank, but now has a hypnotherapy practice. He's a hypnotherapist with his own practice. Let's go straight to the interview and find out how he got there. Hi Adrian, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning.
Adrian, could you first tell us, before we dive into a bit about how you've got to where you are, what it is that you now do?
I'm a hypnotherapist, and I help people. Mainly, my main niche is with weight control, but I also deal a lot with anxiety in all age groups. There seems to be an anxious world out there, and a lot of people needing help. But that's what I do mainly. I'm a hypnotherapist, helping people with all sorts of different issues.
And how long have you been doing that for?
I've been qualified now for just over 2 years, 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started off initially working part-time. I was still full-time employed. And more recently, in the last sort of 18 months, I've got a full-time practice.
Okay, so you mentioned how you've transitioned into it. So can you tell us a bit about what it was that you did before you changed? I think I'm right in saying that you were in IT, is that right?
I was. Well, when I left school, I joined the police force. I came down to London when I was 19. I did 5 years in the Met and decided that wasn't for me. I wasn't happy with shift work, and the way things were going just wasn't working out. So I had an interest in IT. I got myself a Sinclair Spectrum, started teaching myself how to program, and I found myself suddenly, I was such an interest in all of that in IT and how it all worked. And I enrolled on a course at City University for business programming. And I came through that, and I walked straight into a job with North West Thames Regional Health Authority. And I never really looked back from there. Started off as a programmer and have been through all of that. I ended up being an IT support manager at an American bank in Canary Wharf.
And so talk a bit about going from the police to IT. I mean, first of all, what was it about IT that made you think, okay, I'll give that a go,
It was, it was all taking off, wasn't it? At school, there wasn't really anything computerized. It was, back in the 80s or late 70s, really. But it was just amazing. All of these consoles at home, and that was when gaming was just starting, and it was the birth of gaming, you feel like. And I just found it intriguing how you could do all of these things just by typing a few basic words on a keyboard. I just found it just so interesting. But that's, horses for courses, I suppose. I wanted to know how it all ticked.
So you said you started out as a programmer. And so was that always your main focus when you said you kind of ended up as support manager? So how did you transition over your IT career?
Most of my time has been as a programmer, with sort of team lead roles intermingled with that as time moves on. Gradually, the youngsters come through with their newfangled skills, and as oldies get left behind. So management's always that next step if you want to stay in that IT industry. And that's just where I ended up going. Companies don't want to lose all that experience, but they realise that the youngsters are just so much better with the new technologies that that's just generally the way it works out. So really the last 10 years or so I've been a manager, or had been a manager.
So what makes you say that? Why is it that there's this perception that the youngsters are better with the technology? I mean, what makes them able to do things that the oldies, if you'll forgive the expression, what makes them able to do things
I think
that others can't?
it's more of a perception of old dogs, new tricks. I don't necessarily agree that it's true, but it's very hard when you're working in an industry and your nose is to the grindstone and you're focused on what you're doing to pick up those new skills. So with youngsters coming through, learning that through school and universities, they coming into the workplace with that. So that, with that knowledge, if you like, so you're there, and what they can pick up from you is your experience and business knowledge.
So did you find that the companies you're working for weren't really interested in bringing their existing employees up to speed and all that? So, sending them back to school or college or whatever to learn all these new things in conjunction with the experience? Because that seems to me sort of the logical thing to do.
Yes, it does seem the logical thing to do, but it very rarely happens. It's very difficult to get companies to pay for all that training and then put you in on a very expensive, valuable project with minimal skills. So they're looking to buy in experience all the time. So if you can go out and get experience somewhere, then come back, or you're a youngster coming through college and you get your first trainee jobs, and then you get poached and picked up, cherry pick the best people, and that's how that all seems to work. But very rarely do you get a chance to hone new skills to a level where you can be useful when you're already working in a company.
And so did that create a kind of tension between those who were doing the management but who didn't have these new skills and those who had the new skills and were being managed by someone who hadn't learned the latest programming languages or techniques or whatever?
Well, everywhere I've worked, there's always been some major project ongoing where they're trying to replace old legacy systems. And a lot of those legacy systems are still there because they've not actually managed to do that. Amazingly enough, we're talking about writing programs in COBOL, which is Common Business-Oriented Language, which was one of the original business programming languages. And some of that stuff's still around. So it has longevity.
And so did you, in your later role, did that involve managing people who were learning all the new languages? And I'm going to display my ignorance by saying, I don't know, things like Java or whatever.
Yeah, very much so. And in fact, the latter part of that part of my career was managing offshore teams in India. Most of my last team were in India, and I rarely saw them. It was all phone calls and...
Okay, that's really interesting, actually. Presumably that was predominantly as a efficiency-saving, cost-saving measure.
Yes, yeah.
How did managing a remote team then compare with managing a team that you shared an office with?
The way that worked is we had local people on site locally in the bank, so one or two people within the team that would be the link back to the offshore team. But it was a case of really having to get to know them, understanding their culture, as difficult as that was, but trying to maintain stability within that team so that you weren't constantly getting new faces all the time or new people in the team, which made that job even harder. So it was very important to try and create a stability in the offshore side of things. But it was good. It worked. That's why it's still happening now.
And so what did you have any particular tips or tricks that you employed to maintain that stability?
What the company did, the offshore company, was regularly send people over to London to work with us for 2 or 3 months, and then they'd go back and then someone else would come over. So that's key, I think. You get to know people and you get to understand where people's strengths are, who's good at what, and when you can use them, because quite a lot of my work was on the support side, out of hours, overnight. And of course, they would be always available. I would be called up out of woken up in the middle of the night, and I would need to know. Then it's imperative that you know who it is that's going to be working with you, because you need to know that you've got the right person on the phone.
And was all this at a time when there was a lot of this going on, a lot of remote working, or was this something sort of quite new? I mean, did you have, there's so much remote working that goes on these days. Did you have the sorts of systems and tools available to you, things
Yes.
like Slack and Trello and all those things that enables teams to work remotely?
Yes, we did. I didn't have those particular tools, but we had set up that worked pretty well. Yeah.
So you start out as a programmer, then you go more onto the management side. You're managing these offshore teams. You're in IT for, I think, was it 25 years? You said.
Yep.
So when did you start to think that you needed to do something else and possibly start transitioning into something else?
I didn't. It wasn't. That's not the way it worked out. What happened first was I was quite a heavy smoker back in the day, and I wanted to give up smoking, but I knew I needed a helping hand with that. And a local hypnotherapist to here, where I live, was recommended to me. I got in touch with her, and I stopped smoking overnight, just like that.
Wow.
And I was just blown away by that. So I kept in touch with her, and through various conversations, investigated where she did her training, what her academic background was, if you like, to get her qualifications. And I ended up following in her footsteps, really, exactly the same route, through a college that was linked with the University of West London. It took me nearly 2 years of part-time study to get a postgraduate certificate. And so I was qualified. And at that point, I decided, and I think that was probably a nudge in that direction, because I was getting really fed up with being woken up in the middle of the night, being on call 24/7. I thought, I can't keep doing this. It would be the death of me. I need to do something else, but I had no idea what that something else was going to be, aside from winning the lottery. But then this all happened, and you just have to follow that, don't you? A new path opened up in front of me, and the opportunity was there.
Talking about wanting to change, not wanting to be on call, all that sort of thing. I mean, do you think that even if you hadn't discovered hypnotherapy, that you probably would have made a change of some description?
I don't know, to be honest. It's a very difficult question. I wanted to, and I think that desire would have been enough to make me look for something else eventually, yes.
And so, I mean, you said you were amazed by the results of hypnotherapy. Did you go into it with a certain amount of skepticism when someone had recommended it, or did you go in quite sort of thinking, yeah, I've seen that it works for other people, I think it probably will work for me?
I'd seen it help other people. I wasn't really fully aware of the scope of issues that you can help with. People often think, it helps with stop smoking, or that's usually the first thing people think of. But and that's really all I was thinking of. I had no idea what it was, how it worked, what it was going to feel like. But I'm quite open-minded when it comes to things like that. So it's a case of just sitting in the chair and just going with the flow, which is what I did.
There's quite a big gap between having something like that for yourself and then deciding that actually you want to learn more about it, qualify as a practitioner of it. I mean, people might go to see a physio to help with some particular pain or problem, and it solves that pain or problem. But that doesn't mean that they're going to then go and train as a physio themselves.
No.
So where did that additional motivation come from for you actually to want to learn to practice this yourself?
I've always had an interest with things to do with the mind, your brain, how the body works, how it all hangs together. And I remember back when I was about 13. In fact, I've met up with this friend recently, and he remembers exactly the same moment. I somehow got my hands on a How to Hypnotize People book. And we sat in his garden one summer afternoon, and I was trying to hypnotize him. It didn't work. We didn't get anywhere. We had no idea what we were doing, but I never forget that, and it's been in the back of my mind, if you like, as something that is of interest. The first thing I did was when I contacted the college, they were running a foundation course, which was like a 3-month introduction to the world of hypnotherapy. So that as a first step, I needed to do that to get enough academic points to be able to do the postgraduate certificate, because I don't have a degree myself. So that's what I did, and and that opened my eyes really as to what it is, how it works, what it can be used for. And I had a discussion with my wife. I thought I'd really like to do this, but it's going to cost us a lot of money. But it's something I really want to follow through. I've been bitten by that bug, the same as I was 25 years before with the IT programming bug.
Okay, so when you started looking into doing the foundation course and becoming qualified, and you were still doing your IT job, were you thinking in those terms that this was now going to replace what you were doing?
That's when I started to think, I can do this. It's not a gift. It's a toolkit, and your experience guides you as to where to use what tools and when to help people. And it's just fascinating to be able to see people change quickly and easily towards the goals that they want to achieve. And I just love it. Love it. It's one of those things people always know, blimey, you found your calling, haven't you? I had a GP who said that, so I was just ranting on and on and on about, I can do this, I can help people with this, I can help, have you got patients that do, and I have to shut myself up sometimes. Look, I'm ranting on now.
You see this as a calling now, do you think? It's almost
definitely. I wish I'd done this years ago. I really do. Sometimes I regret now that, I'm 56, and I think I wish I had another 20 years. I wish I was in my 30s where there's so much to learn. There's so much out there, and there's so much research going on now. And it's much more widely accepted as a complementary therapy these days. And I can see that getting bigger and bigger. And I want to be part of that.
I'm curious about what you said then. So you said you're 56 and you want to be doing this for another, or you'd like to do this for another 20 years.
Well, yeah, on top of what I've got left. So I wish I could have the main part of my life doing this, because if we all die one day, and at 56, I think, well, maybe I've got hopefully 20 or 30 years left in me, but I'd like to think that was 50 years, never enough. I wish I was younger. I wish I'd done it years ago, I suppose is the phrase I'm looking for.
And that said, did you have any particular fears or anxieties about transitioning from something that you had done for 25 years and probably had lots of experience and were well respected into this brave new subject that you'd had an interest in, but you're now looking at making it your living?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Initially, I set about reducing my working week, or I reduced my week down to a 4-day working week with the bank. So that gave me Fridays and Saturdays where I could start my practice, if you like, part-time. And the more I did that, the more it made me realize that I really wanted to do this. It was just, it was just fantastic to be able to help people. And I was then starting to think, how on earth can I make that transition? How am I going to be able to carry on paying the bills while I build the business up, for instance? That's the biggest worry. In the end, that decision was made for me. So
How do you mean that decision
I
was
was made redundant. My job was outsourced.
when you found out you were going to be made redundant? How did that make you feel?
I was the only one that walked out of that office with a big cheesy grin on his face. um, it was touch and go. I wasn't sure I was going to be one of the selected, if you like. So I wasn't sure. I wanted it. At that point, I'd made a decision that if it was me, then I knew what I was going to do. And because I had that option, I thought it only fair that I tell people that, if you're going to throw someone into the unknown, I've got something that I can go and do. Other people haven't, but that's not the way they make those decisions, is it? So,
Okay, so this wasn't a sort of voluntary sort of situation where you could say, okay.
No. So the decision then was, do I make a go of this, or do I look for another IT role? And under other people that that were in the same situation as I ended up in, have now got other jobs in IT. So the opportunity was there and probably still is, but I'm so glad I didn't go down that path.
And what were other people saying at that time when you were being made redundant? Were other people saying, "Oh no, you should definitely go and do your hypnotherapy and start the business there"? Or were people saying, "Oh, come on, Adrian. I mean, yeah, it's all very good, but come on, you've been in IT for 25 years. Why on earth would you want to change now?"
Yeah, not to my face. I think people were surprised that. But I mean, I'd openly spoken to people about what I was studying in my own time, so they knew my interest in it. So they just wished me luck at the end of the day.
And what about internally? Did you ever think redundancy? That is a sign. That is a sign that actually I really should start pursuing this all in, wholeheartedly doing this, or did you think I've now got an opportunity, but I'm not sure if I want to take it?
No, I had spoken with my wife, and she was like, "Yeah, no, definitely, let's go for it. It's what you want to do." I gave myself a year, if you like, to have a go at this, to prove that it would work, and then I would have to start thinking about, if it didn't work, I would have to start making a decision. But there's a twist at the end of this story.
Okay, go on.
Just recently, I've been given the opportunity to run a practice in the building where the bank I used to work is, in Canary Wharf. So I've opened up that. I'm now working just Mondays in the basement. I have a therapy room in the basement, and working basically in the same building as the bank. And my clients there are now people I used to work with in the bank.
And how did that arise?
I offered to do a presentation for them. They had a wellness and wellbeing week for one section of the business back in February, and I offered to do them an hour's talk on stress and tricks and tools to help combat stress in the workplace. And they said, "Yeah, great, fine, come along." So I did that for them one Tuesday morning in February. And while I was there, I bumped into the landlord of the actual office block, and he's the manager there, and the buildings manager. And he said, "Look, I want to show you something." So he took me downstairs. "I'm building these 2 rooms," and I sort of, yeah, okay, why? It was a bit of a mystery as to why he was doing this. But anyway, this was his belief that this type of thing should be on offer to workers in that building, and maybe it'll spread to other buildings. I mean, you absolutely should do. It's just rocketed since I started. But so there are these 2 rooms. One's a yoga and sort of stretch and sort of, personal training room, so it's slightly bigger. And then there's a one-on-one therapy room, which is the one I use, and it's rammed. I'm so busy. I'm only there on Mondays, and now I'm looking at doing 2 days a week there now, because there's just so many people that want to come and see me.
And this includes your former colleagues?
Yes. must be weird because I've got a pop-up banner that's in the foyer, and so that's there all the time. So they must come into work and see my face every morning. I wonder just what the hell is he doing now? But yeah, that's a twist. I never saw that coming.
But I guess you must have. Well, you must not have burnt any bridges then with the banks.
No.
You stayed in contact with people. So, I mean, how did you become aware of this wellness event, and how did they sort of who contacted who in that?
Someone told me about that event was happening. I forget. But so I just emailed an individual who I remember from when I worked there, and said, "Look, I'm happy to come and do an hour's presentation to help people with stress in the workplace." And they just emailed me back and said, "Yeah, brilliant. We'll let you know the exact date we're doing it." And so it was really as easy as that. There wasn't much to it. Bit of an anxious moment, I think, just before I started the talk, but I think people got a lot from it. And I think there was some credibility on my part gained there as well. I think.
Was there any part of you that thought at that point, no, it's not for me? Why are they going to listen to me? I've only just started this. I don't really have any, as you say, credibility in the field.
Well, it's very, you have to remain balanced, and negative thoughts do creep in, but you have to push those to one side and just keep moving forward. You can't let those eat away at you, and that's what I help other people with. People allow that negativity to overwhelm them. That develops into anxiety and can lead to depression and all sorts if you just give up, because you lose that self-esteem.
Absolutely. What external help have you had in terms of setting this up, if any? I mean, you've mentioned that your wife has been extremely supportive in this, but going from working for a bank in the IT team to effectively starting your own business, and presumably there's lots of other business side to it, not just the actual practicing side to it. So have you had any coaching, mentoring, anything like that's really sort of helped you to start your practice and develop your practice?
Yes, I have. I contacted again through the hypnotherapist I went to see. I don't know how I knew she was linked. Anyway, there's a lady called Sheila Granger. She's a hypnotherapist in Hull. She lives just outside Hull. And she pioneered the virtual gastric band program, which is something that I'm licensed to use and I help a lot of people with, which is a weight control program. And she mentored me for a year. Obviously I had to pay her, but it wasn't actually, she was more than happy to help. So it was a minimal fee really as for mentorship, but she showed me the ropes as far as, this is what you need to do. You can't just sit there. People won't come and find you. They have to know you're there, and that's critical for any business. The marketing side, it's not just advertising. It is get your face out there. People need to see you. People need to know what you do and see you doing it.
And so talk me through, how did you identify that mentoring was going to get you to where you wanted to get to quicker?
Because she is very successful, and by talking to her and looking at what knowledge she was able to pass back to me as well. Okay, I need this. I don't know how to do this at the moment. How did you do this, basically? So show me what you've done to make yourself so successful. And the other hypnotherapist is so busy. She's obviously followed the same path. So that's where that credibility came from, if you like. And she pushed me to do all sorts. And I'll show you what the final product was. This book.
I might have to take a screenshot of that and put it on the show.
Yeah, I can send you the book cover. I've got copy of this. So this is so with her guidance, that book's about to be published on Amazon Kindle and paperback.
Oh, fantastic.
There's some audio downloads that I've recorded in a local recording studio here. But that's really exciting, yeah. So it's to help type 2 diabetes.
So this was really a case of identifying someone who was already where you wanted to get to and asking them how they got there.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people don't do, actually. It's, people tend to ask people they know, they ask their friends and family, what do you think about that? And they're happy to give advice, even though they might not know anything about it. But actually reaching out to someone who you've identified as being, this person does what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't think people do that enough.
No, and it was so important. You can be dabbling around in the shallows for a long time if you don't get that push. There's one other person whose network I got involved with is an American hypnotherapist called Jason Linett. He's got a website which has an immense amount of information on it called Work Smart Hypnosis. And so I saw him when he came to Heathrow a couple of years ago. And he was over in the UK for a while, but he ran a weekend seminar at Heathrow. So I went to meet him there and picked up a lot of tips just in that one weekend. So with the information that he's got and what Sheila was showing me, it's where I am now. And the one other thing you absolutely must do if you're looking to set up your own business is business networking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a member of BNI, Business Networking International, and it's one of the best thing I've done. I was pushed towards doing it. I'd heard negative reviews of what BNI is and what it isn't, and what it can do for you, and and I simply hadn't followed that through because of the negative things I'd heard. But I joined, and I've been given the honour of being president this year for the next 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only been a member there for 8 months or so, and one of the biggest and best things I've done. I get a lot of work through business networking.
And so, what about the future? How long are you going to do this for? Where do you see this going?
Oh, this will be something that I'll carry on doing into retirement, because it's just. There's so much to learn. This is why I said I wish I had more time on this planet. But there is. I've got a library of books. You can only read so much in a day, but there's just so much information out there now, and it's so interesting. And there's a whole world of Facebook's fantastic with various groups sharing information. I had, I had this sort of client yesterday. I tried this on this, and this works so well. Oh, really? Okay. So little tips and things to help people, and different personality types and how they respond to different approaches, even down to that level. Yes.
And when you say you're going to do this until retirement, I mean, do you have a plan for, okay, I'm going to do this until this age and then I'm going to stop? Or is it that you're going to do this basically for as long as you can?
Yeah, for as long as I can. It's not stressful. It's talking therapy. It's words. It really just boils down to words. And it's how you say them, when you say them, and who you say them to. And it's that powerful. And you can do that, it's sitting down. You can do that, whatever age you are, as long as you have mental faculties. Cool.
So you've mentioned a couple of the people who've helped you, the mentors and the Work Smart Hypnosis. Are there any other resources that the listeners might find useful in terms of your transition? Any books, or just a quote that you've had stuck to your wall, or anything that's really helped you with this transition?
Well, it's interesting that the college that I went through, the London College of Clinical Hypnosis, LCCH, are still going strong. They have been around for 20, 25, 30 years. A lot of well-known hypnotherapists have come through that college. They've recently changed. I was the last intake that they were able to put people through the postgraduate certificate as an academic qualification. They broke the links with the University of West London, and they now run their own diploma, which I think is probably an easier approach. It's much more affordable in that you can do modules as and when you can afford them, or you've got the time to do them, and you build up your portfolio of knowledge, if you like, in your own time. And that's probably an easier way to do things, and probably better way. So I would recommend, if someone wants to get into hypnotherapy, and why not? It's really interesting if you have that interest. There's a lot of people out there that need help. And it's a great thing to be able to help them with. There's nothing wrong with London College, with LCCH at all. And I'm sure, you come out of there with as much knowledge as you need to start out on your own.
Okay, so if people want to get hold of you and find out a bit more about what you do, where can they find you?
On my website, which is mindweave.co.uk. And I'm also on Facebook. People can contact me through there via Messenger on Facebook. And something I'm going to be doing very soon is a messenger type chat link on my website, which will come through to my mobile phone, so I can be able to, if people want to chat to me at any time, obviously reasonable time, daytime. Then if I'm not at my office, then I can pick up communication that way.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I'll include links to all of that in the show notes.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. This has been really, really interesting. Not an area I knew anything about. So it's been great talking to you about it. And so, thank you very much, and good luck with it.
Thank you.
Aside from Adrian's obvious enthusiasm for hypnotherapy, one of the things that really came over strongly was that Adrian wished he'd made this change earlier. But what's most important is that he still did make the change. He didn't fall into the trap of thinking that it was too late, it wasn't worth it. Adrian didn't think that he'd got so far down the path, age 56, that he may as well just stick it out and mark time until retirement. It's that old Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. And I really hope that Adrian has inspired you that wherever you are on your career journey, it's never too late to change. As always, you'll find show notes and links to all the resources that we mentioned on the website. This week you'll find them at changeworklife.com/9. That's number 9 for episode 9. If you haven't already, please do leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you go to get your podcasts. They really do help people find the podcast, and if it's been helpful for you, hopefully it's going to be helpful for other people as well. We've got another great interview next week, and I can't wait to see you then. Cheers. Bye.